Africa today is already the ultimate stage for wildlife. You've got lions, elephants, giraffes, hippos, and rhinos. All the big names you think of when someone says safari. But here's the crazy part. This is actually the toned-down version of Africa. Because thousands of years ago, the continent had even more giants, predators, and just plain weird animals roaming around. Now, most people think Africa somehow escaped the mass extinctions that wiped out megafauna in other parts of the world, like the mammoths in North America. And it's true. Africa held on to more big animals than anywhere else. But even here, a lot of incredible species disappeared. So, what if they never did? What if Africa's lost megafauna was still alive today? If you think today's elephants are massive, they'd look almost modest next to what once roamed Africa. The true heavyweight was Paleoloxodon recci, a straight-tusked elephant that stood taller than any elephant alive today, with tusks stretching well over 4 meters. Herds of these giants would have reshaped the landscape even more than modern elephants already do, knocking down trees, carving out paths, and forcing other animals to adapt to their constant presence. But elephants weren't alone in this oversized world. Africa had its own mammoth too. Mammoths africanus, a North African species that added even more variety to the elephant family. Instead of just one type dominating the savannas, there would have been multiple species of colossal proboscideans sharing the same land. And it wasn't just elephants. The giraffe family had some strange branches that didn't survive. Civatherium looked like a giraffe crossed with a moose, short-necked but enormously powerful, with thick antler-like ossicones on its head. It stood over 2 meters at the shoulder and weighed as much as a modern rhino. Then you had Brahmatherium and Samatherium, other bizarre giraffids that gave the savannas an even more alien look compared to today. The herds of grazers were just as extreme. Pelorvis, the giant buffalo, carried horns that stretched 3 meters across, so wide they make Cape buffalo look small in comparison. Megalotrangus, a wildebeest-like antelope, was built like a tank, far bulkier than the ones we see today. And then there was Russingorix, the trumpet skull antelope, with a hollow crest in its nose that probably made strange calls echoing across the grasslands. Africa's primates once looked very different from the ones we know today. Modern baboons can already be aggressive, but their extinct relatives took things to another level. The best known was Dinopithecus, a colossal baboon that could grow as heavy as a gorilla. Its skull shows enormous jaws and long canine teeth, the kind you'd expect on a predator rather than a primate. Dinopithecus didn't live alone either. Like modern baboons, it likely gathered in troops. But these weren't the 100-pound baboons that terrorize tourists today. A troop of giant, gorilla-sized baboons moving together would have been one of the most intimidating sights on the savannah. They could scavenge kills, raid herds, and even drive predators off their meals. Then there was Theropithecus oswaldi, the oversized ancestor of today's gelder monkeys. Modern gelders are grass eaters confined to the Ethiopian highlands, but this species spread across much of Africa. It was heavier, sturdier, and far better adapted to grazing in open country. Instead of a few mountain troops, herds of them could have dotted the grasslands, feeding side by side with zebras, wildebeest, and antelope. Their numbers alone would have made them a dominant force in the ecosystem. Africa's carnivore lineup in the past was even more crowded than today. Lions, leopards, and hyenas were already there, but they had to share the landscape with an entire cast of now extinct rivals. One of the most dangerous was Homotherium, the scimitar-toothed cat. Unlike the bulky Smilodon of the Americas, Homotherium had long legs and was built for running. Its curved saber teeth were shorter and sturdier, designed for slicing into large prey. Fossil evidence suggests it may have hunted in groups, making it a pack-hunting saber-tooth competing directly with lions. Alongside it lived Meganterion, a smaller saber-toothed cat with longer, more fragile fangs. It relied on ambush rather than speed, waiting in cover before delivering precision killing bites. Even earlier, Africa had Macarodus, one of the biggest saber-tooths ever, a predator that could weigh as much as a lion but with teeth far more specialized for bringing down giant herbivores. Then came the hyenas. Today they're seen as scavengers, but in the past they included giants that were closer to bone-crushing predators. Pachycrucata brevirostris, the short-faced hyena, was the largest hyena ever known, weighing up to 200 kilograms. Its jaws could splinter elephant bones, and it likely lived by ambushing and overpowering prey rather than chasing it down. And then there was Chasmoporthetes, the running hyena, a slim, long-legged species built like a cheetah, perfectly adapted for fast pursuits across open grasslands. Not all of Africa's megafauna were plains dwellers. The rivers, wetlands, and forests had their own giants that vanished over time. Several species of rhino once roamed across the continent. Ceratotherium mauritanicum, an extinct relative of the white rhino, lived in North Africa until just a few thousand years ago. It was similar in size to modern rhinos, but spread across regions where no rhinos live today. Even more unusual was Stephanorhinus hematoechus, the so-called narrow-nosed rhino, which managed to expand from Eurasia into northern Africa. These rhinos added layers of diversity that are now gone, with multiple species shaping vegetation and competing for browsing rights. The hippo family was also richer in the past. Hexaprotodon, a giant hippo relative, once lived in Africa, much larger and more robust than the hippos that survive today. Some species of Hexaprotodon also spread into Asia, showing how successful this lineage was before shrinking back to the single species we know. Ancient Africa may have even hosted multiple hippo species at the same time, filling rivers and wetlands with more bulk than modern ecosystems could handle. The waterways weren't safe either. Alongside Nile crocodiles lurked true monsters. Crocodilus thorbjarnarssoni was a gigantic croc from East Africa that could reach 7 to 8 meters long, far larger than most modern Nile crocodiles. The forests added their own mix. Fossils show a broader variety of antelope, giant bushback relatives, and woodland bovids that no longer exist. Many of them carried oversized horns or unusual skull shapes, filling niches that are now empty. These animals formed the quieter but equally diverse backdrop to Africa's megafauna world, where not just the grasslands, but also the rivers and woodlands were dominated by heavyweights. If these animals had survived, Africa today wouldn't just be the continent of lions and elephants, it would have been the hardest place on Earth for humans to rise to dominance. For early humans, every hunt would have been a fight on multiple fronts. A herd of Pelorovis or Megalotragus could feed an entire band, but getting near them meant being watched by saber-tooths, short-faced hyenas, or even troops of Dinopithecus that could scatter hunters before they got close. Hunting tools alone wouldn't have been enough. Survival would have demanded coordination, fire, and group tactics much earlier than in our timeline. Humans may have developed complex cooperation, language, and strategy faster simply because going after food required armies of people working together. Living near water would have been even riskier. Hexaprotodon hippos and giant crocodiles turned rivers into constant death traps. Fishing or collecting water could have cost lives daily. Villages would likely have avoided river valleys altogether, forcing people onto high ground and limiting access to some of the richest farming soils. Agriculture, when it came, would have faced constant setbacks. Herds of oversized buffalo and antelope could wipe out entire harvests in a single night. Fencing or corralling animals would have been nearly impossible with predators like Homotherium hunting in coordinated groups and giant hyenas smashing through bone and wood alike. This level of danger could have reshaped human expansion. If Africa stayed filled with megafauna while Europe and Asia gradually lost theirs, humans might have left the continent earlier, drawn to lands where competition was lighter. Migration routes could have been driven not just by climate shifts, but by constant pressure of predators and oversized grazers at home. Ironically, Africa's richness in wildlife might have slowed the development of large, permanent civilizations, while other regions, with fewer giants in the way, advanced agriculture and cities more quickly. Culturally, these animals would have dominated human identity. Giant baboons with gorilla-like builds, saber-tooths lurking at the edge of camps, elephants larger than anything alive today. They wouldn't just be threats, they'd be central to religion, mythology, and art. Even in modern times, Africa would be unrecognizable. Expanding farms would need fortress-like defenses. Cities would likely cluster in areas where megafauna pressure was lowest, leaving huge tracts of land under animal control. Highways would be built like barriers, not roads, with walls against elephants, buffalo, or troops of giant primates. Safaris wouldn't just be tourism, they'd be survival expeditions into one of the last places where humans still weren't fully in charge. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. You can also leave a comment with what you would like to see in the following videos. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.